Okay. We got 3 packages here. Only one of these contains anime, but I think all 3 are things that I would show, so let's begin here with the top box. And I will probably actually open up the content, even though this isn't an anime or DVD. This one is an SNES Classic. Okay, don't need the box. Let's go ahead and open this up. So I mentioned last week that I think I wanted this a bit more. The exact reasons are Star Fox 2 and I think Earthbound is on here as well. Yeah, Earthbound is right there. A lot of these other ones, if I don't have them, I didn't care as much about them already. So I would already have them on DVD, not DVD, the actual cartridge and the actual SNES. But you know, this is also a nice option for HDMI SNES gaming. Officially, I guess, because you can always do the unofficial emulated stuff, and that's not a problem. But this helps me figure out little things. Like here's the little console itself. Okay, the eject button doesn't do nothing, but yeah, that's good to know. Let's see. Oh, okay, controllers are here to the side, and these aren't as many, of course. They aren't the original plugs either, but that's not an issue, and I'm not going to try to figure out how to get that one undone. We just want to take a look. Okay, I guess if I'm mentioning the connector type, you see it's that instead of that thing that I see on the SNES across the room. And then we've got a DVD that's falling, and we've got cables. One of these is a USB cable. Can't help but think there might be something missing. Here's an HDMI cable. I'll grab the box again real quick. Nothing there. Interesting. So, it's an interesting difference between the SNES Classic and the NES Mini. Is the NES Mini comes with this thing, which is just a USB wall thing. So apparently don't have the ability to plug it into the wall by default. I don't think anything fell out. The box wasn't taped shut, so it's always possible it was a return thing, and that's one thing that wasn't returned, but I think that's unlikely. I guess I'll just have to fire it up and make sure that the contents are fine. So this one is Gravity Falls, the complete collection. Which I think I have one Gravity Falls DVD of some sort, maybe. Or 2, I don't remember. But I figured I'd go for the complete collection. Includes all 40 episodes. I've never seen it. I've heard pretty good things about it. So now, if I could just not set things down on scissors, then let's open this one up. And this one contains the actual anime releases for this week. So we have Twin Star Exorcists 1. So this is a collection 1, a volume 1. I'm kind of curious. Okay, so as I open this up, let's take a look at the back. I see a region A, I see an English dub. That's 12 episodes on 2 Blu-ray discs. Who released this? Funimation? Oh, and then the DVD over here says DVD. I was like, Blu-ray only? Is this Sentai? But no, it's not. There we go. I knew there would be glue on there somewhere. He looks happy. Let's see. Okay, maybe I'll be able to find that again. Might be good, might be not. I don't know if this is supposed to... Doesn't feel like there's anything in here. So, is this like a 4-core series and there's going to be 4 DVD Blu-ray releases? I guess for the time being, this will stay in here if I can ever put it back in there. And we will take a look at this, which has a person that's maybe a person I've already seen before on the cover. And then inside, yeah, I don't know anything about this series. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it looks like it's going to be collected. And if you're curious, we're getting close to the release of the Legend of the Galactic Heroes Blu-ray release, and that has been delayed a month. So it's coming out late August instead of stars. Okay, let's see. This says disc 1, episodes 1 through 9, disc 2, and there's a Blu-ray symbol, and then the DVD's blue with disc 1 and a disc 2. Oh, yeah, okay. These characters look familiar, like maybe they were on the cover, and that's somewhat calmer versions of them. Yeah, see, red eyes, blue eyes. It's an interesting looking show, although, you know, I've probably watched more interesting looking things that turned out to be slop. Let's slip this in here somewhere, anywhere. Just because I like to keep those for some reason. Okay, that'll do. Next up we have Saiyuki Reload Blast, which is interesting that more Saiyuki is being released. I see regions A and B. I see an English dub, Blu-ray and DVD. So this is Funimation release. Yes. Sorry, I'm just... I don't know, maybe you've heard that it's been warm out. Or maybe you've felt it. Why does this feel like already released stuff? I was pretty sure that I checked this stuff hadn't come out before. Maybe this is more recent, but the artwork feels the same as a lot of stuff that already exists for Saiyuki. But I was pretty sure that I didn't have a Saiyuki Reload Blast. Well, if I did, I didn't have it on Blu-ray, so that's another reason. Anyways, last but not least, Battle Girl High School. There's a lot of Battle Girls there. I see it's Region A, I see it's Japanese with English subtitles only, it's Blu-ray only release, Math History PE, Save the World. Yeah, that sounds about right. We'll pull this one off, throw that aside, and take a peek on the 2 discs on the inside. This might be the entirety of the series, I don't know. Battle Girls? Battle Girl. Well, there we go. This week's anime DVD collection update. So, it's been a mix of a week. I actually decided to watch Alice in Zoroku as my first choice. Like I mentioned last week, I kind of got the weird vibe that the character design for girl there was distinctly alien-eyed, so it piqued my curiosity and I kind of watched it. I thought it was an okay series. It's got a really good first episode. Zoroku is quite a character in that, and you enjoy what he does in relation to everything else that's going on. It's an interesting setup because of the interesting dynamic he adds to it. And then I guess the series just doesn't... It's kind of hard to live up to that. He's not a bad character by any stretch of the imagination. He's still very entertaining, but relegated a little bit further back, which is, I guess, one of the difficulties with having a an obviously old man character as a main character. He does drive plot, not as much as the other girl, I guess, but it kind of goes through weird phases, transforms a couple of times as a series, And for the most part, it's really easy for the series itself to kind of forget him and not have him as much doing stuff as a lot of the other characters. And you know, that's a common pit trap that you know, a lot of shows would fall in, and this one's kind of no different. You know, it's a lot easier to have cute girls doing cute things on the screen versus an old man, for example. So overall, it doesn't really detract. It kind of means that as you go through it, you're not really quite sure what you're going to experience from time to time. It's got some weird elements mixed throughout it that keeps you engaged. So it's not a bad series by any stretch. I actually thought it was pretty nice, enjoyable. But admittedly, there's some flaws in there. So I guess because I watched this, I did have Alien 9 on the mind, and I did watch a couple episodes of that with a friend, and I have to say, I really do like just how that show builds what it does. I don't know if I really want to talk too much about it, because if you haven't seen it before, it's nice to watch. Fair warning, it's not a complete implementation of the manga. In fact, it leaves off at a, oh jeez, I really want to know what happened next sort of moment. But I think it's one of those shows that was intended to kind of lead you into reading the manga. Maybe. Last but not least, I watched Nanbaka. And it was actually nice, entertaining. Yeah, I think I would consider it a little more flawed than Alice in Zoroku, but there's a bit of a personal preference there. Somebody told me to watch this because it's funny, and it's kind of amusing. I think the humor might, other people might enjoy some of it more than I did. That's definitely a very real possibility. There's nothing bad about it. I guess for me the issue is I watched it being sold on that idea, and it kind of sometimes thinks it's about that, but it sometimes isn't. It definitely goes very shonen in at least the story arc told in this first volume here. And I assume that it's kind of like that throughout. So what that basically means is there's a little bit of a mixture of purposelessness kind of with just, you know, it having fun. And it's interesting because like if we compare and contrast with Alice in Zoroku, which I'm hinting at that I enjoyed more, part of the reasons I think I enjoyed this more is because I had something that I knew I could like, that I could latch onto, that was a thing that I could see how this series would try and do stuff with. In particular, it's like, oh, well, she's essentially a young girl whose lifestyle is changing because of this stuff, and so she needs to learn about things. So there's, you know, if that's the kind of thing you enjoy, you can kind of follow along with it in that regard. Nanbaka doesn't give you something like that. It kind of presents this idea of, oh, these guys, they break out of prison and the guards are always trying to defend, and they're a mix of goofy and strong and all that stuff. And there's one guy who's the main guard from our watching the series perspective. But then it's not really obvious where it should go from there. And it develops a story idea, but it's very shonen in that it's something that once you kind of are introduced to, it's just a background. The show could choose to do anything it wants, because it's not like something people are actively dealing with right now. It would be interesting if it was something like, I mean, as a kind of contrasting example, if it was evolving prison escape tactics, that would be one thing, but it's not that. So, you know, it's one of those weird things where, I mean, I could watch more easily, if I had more, of course. It's just not 100% my style, maybe more like 90%, I guess, whereas Alice in Zoroku maybe 100% my style, or something like that. And then I think a lot of my free time I've been mostly zombieing. It was an exhausting week of some sort. I guess because Octopath Traveler. So I think I mentioned last week that I've been playing this and I pushed some bedtimes and whatnot, and you know, I'm still putting time into it. My thoughts on it are kind of the same from last week, I think, where I'm enjoying the battle system. The story system isn't anything to really write home about. It's very, you know, straightforward, basic. You kind of realize, oh, no, character's really the best character to choose, so you can pretty much choose whichever one you want, and the game's pretty nice to you in that regard. Interesting thought. But I'm still working on the 7th character, and I'm gonna go get the 8th character, and then I'll probably decide what party I want. But I'm thinking I'm starting to center on certain characters. There are definitely some ideas in there that are really great, but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think what I like is the idea of an autonomous party. So depending on the items I can get, the skills I can learn, the way they work together, maybe I'm selecting characters and ideas and party formations based on those ideas. And I guess the reason that would be notable is just because, well, I still don't know what the last character is like, but you know, I've noticed certain patterns. The game is definitely designed so that you could think of certain characters as certain pairs and choose one versus the other. There's a kind of a risky and a great versions of each, maybe, so I kind of have a really good idea what the last path is going to be. But you know, there's going to be useful purposes for all the characters going forward, so I'm going to have to make sure the levels get kept up. And the point of all this is I've put like 30-something hours in the game. There's not really much in the way of story. I just really like the battle mechanics, and it's an interesting contrast to Donkey's video about it, where he has good points about some of the things that are not the highlights of the game, but it's an interesting video because it's lacking a little bit in the humor category, because it's more of a chance for him to talk about those negative points, and so there's funny points that do come up, and some weaknesses in terms of if you choose the game a certain way, it probably isn't as appealing to you as a starting game as maybe it could be for other people. But yeah, it's just unfortunate because he could totally he could have done better with that video, I think. Like, he didn't even talk about, oh yes, there are funny things in the game. Like, you can have this one person who can interrogate dogs and find out that they're 3 years old and they moved away from their village and they hope to move back again to see their lover that they left behind, but for the time being they're going to be a loyal follower. It's like, that's some pretty humorous little thing to have in there, and there's little bits and pieces like that throughout the game. But it's definitely a more mechanics enjoying sort of game. I don't know. This pretty much means that by next week I'll probably finally have all 8 characters in it. I will be experimenting with or experiencing story continuance for some of these characters finally. We'll have to find out. The truth of the matter is, I'll just do whatever I do. Maybe I'll get lost in watching anime, or maybe I'll watch Gravity Falls. There's no reason that couldn't be watched. I do think there is a very low chance that Earthbound will get started up. I got the SNES Classic because I think the cartridge is through the roof for it, and of course I get better video quality if I go with these HDMI systems. And it's a collectible, and I obviously couldn't buy a cartridge of Star Fox 2 because that was never released. But Final Fantasy VII is actually kind of a risk in terms of interrupting Octopath Traveler, which is why I'm probably not going to fire it up. But I've basically got a couple brothers who are going to... one's definitely replaying. I'm thinking the other one may be playing it for the first time for himself, but he's familiar with the game, so maybe it's not a... maybe it's a replay, I don't know. But the point is, you know, they're part of a small group within the family that just plays games. I'm like, I've been thinking of playing through Final Fantasy VII for real myself, because I've only ever played through it with Chica just to kind of go through the story again, and I guess all the other content of the game I pretty much got by watching my brothers play it. So I should really have my own save data and do my own stuff, but I probably shouldn't do it while I have Octopath Traveler, especially since one of the things that's fun about this part of Octopath Traveler is you find these companions and level them up and see what they can do and see what you can maybe do with the party, because they've been set up in very good ways in that regard. Oh well, I guess I can't think of really anything else to cover. That's pretty much everything. So y'all have a nice week.